Right now, as you read this, your brain is performing trillions of calculations per second. It's processing light hitting your retinas, converting it into electrical signals, assembling those signals into shapes and letters, comparing patterns to memory, extracting meaning, generating thoughts, and controlling every unconscious process keeping you alive. And you're not even aware of most of it. The human brain weighs about 3 pounds, the consistency of soft tofu. It contains 86 billion neurons, brain cells, each connected to thousands of others, forming a network of over 100 trillion connections called synapses. If you lined up all the nerve fibers in a single human brain, they'd stretch about 100,000 miles, enough to circle Earth 4 times. But the brain isn't just complex, it's organized. At the back of your skull sits the brainstem, the most primitive part, controlling breathing, heartbeat, sleep, and basic survival functions. This is the reptilian brain, shared by all vertebrates, evolved hundreds of millions of years ago. Wrapped around the brainstem is the limbic system, the emotional brain. The amygdala processes fear and threat. The hippocampus encodes memories. The hypothalamus regulates hunger, thirst, and body temperature. This layer evolved in early mammals around 200 million years ago. The outermost layer is the cerebral cortex, the thinking brain, massively expanded in primates and especially humans. It's only about 3 millimeters thick, but so folded that it has the surface area of a large pizza. This is where conscious thought happens: language, reasoning, planning, creativity. So how does it work? Brain cells communicate through electricity and chemistry. When a neuron fires, an electrical pulse races down its axon, a long fiber extending from the cell body. At the end, the electrical signal triggers the release of neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that cross the tiny gap to the next neuron. If enough signals arrive, that neuron fires too, propagating the signal. This is how everything in your brain works: thoughts, emotions, memories, sensations, all patterns of neurons firing together. Neurons that fire together wire together, strengthening their connections. This is learning. When you practice piano, you're strengthening specific neural pathways. When you forget something, those pathways weaken. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself, a process called neuroplasticity. Stroke victims can recover lost functions as other brain regions compensate. London taxi drivers, who must memorize thousands of streets, develop enlarged hippocampi. Blind people repurpose visual cortex for processing sound and touch. Different regions specialize in different tasks. The visual cortex at the back processes sight. More brain area is devoted to vision than any other sense. The auditory cortex in the temporal lobes processes sound. The motor cortex controls movement, with different areas mapped to different body parts. Moving your lips and fingers takes more brain space than moving your entire torso, because fine motor control requires more processing. Language is uniquely human, processed primarily in the left hemisphere. Broca's area, near the temple, handles speech production. Wernicke's area, further back, handles comprehension. Damage to Broca's area leaves you able to understand but unable to speak fluently. Damage to Wernicke's leaves you speaking fluently but nonsensically. Memory isn't stored in one place. Working memory, what you're consciously thinking about right now, is handled by the prefrontal cortex. Long-term memories are encoded by the hippocampus but stored distributed across the cortex. Emotional memories, strengthened by the amygdala, are the strongest. That's why you remember traumatic or joyful events vividly while forgetting routine days. Sleep is when memories consolidate. During REM sleep, your brain replays the day's experiences, strengthening important connections and pruning unimportant ones. Dreams are this memory consolidation process becoming conscious, your brain sorting and integrating information, often in bizarre, symbolic ways. Consciousness itself remains mysterious. We know which brain regions are active during conscious experience: the thalamus, cortex, and specific network hubs. But we don't know how electrical signals become subjective experience, how neurons firing create the feeling of you experiencing the world. The brain runs on about 20 watts of power, the same as a dim light bulb, yet it outperforms any computer in pattern recognition, creativity, and general intelligence. Artificial neural networks, inspired by the brain, power modern AI, but they're vastly simpler. GPT-4 has about 1.7 trillion parameters. Impressive, but still less complex than a single human brain's connections. Your brain creates your reality. Everything you see, hear, feel, it's a simulation. a model constructed from fragmentary sensory data and prior expectations. When you look at a scene, your eyes send incomplete, distorted images to your brain. The brain fills in gaps, corrects distortions, and presents a seamless conscious experience. You're not experiencing the world directly, you're experiencing your brain's best guess about the world. And here's the strangest part, there's no single you in your brain. Different systems compete for control. Your rational prefrontal cortex argues with your emotional limbic system. Your conscious mind has access to only a tiny fraction of your brain's processing. Most decisions are made unconsciously, and your conscious mind rationalizes them afterward, creating the illusion of conscious control. Yet this 3-pound lump of neurons has written symphonies, built civilizations, decoded the laws of physics, and pondered its own existence. The brain is the most complex object we've discovered in the universe, and every human has one. You are not just in your brain, you are your brain, a pattern of electrical activity rippling through billions of interconnected cells, creating the experience of being you. Before humans invented writing, there was only speech. Knowledge died with people. History was myth, transmitted through stories that changed with each telling. Then, around 3200 BC, something revolutionary happened in Mesopotamia. Someone made marks in wet clay that represented words. Writing was born, and human civilization accelerated at an unprecedented pace. The first writing system was cuneiform, developed by the Sumerians in what's now Iraq. It started as simple pictograms. A drawing of a cow meant cow, a drawing of grain meant grain. Scribes pressed wedge-shaped reeds into clay tablets, creating the iconic angular symbols. These weren't literature or philosophy. They were inventories, contracts, tax records. Writing was invented for accounting, not art. But once writing existed, it transformed everything. Knowledge could be preserved exactly. Laws could be written down. Hammurabi's Code, carved in stone around 1750 BC, is one of the first comprehensive legal systems. History could be recorded. We have Sumerian king lists, Egyptian pharaoh chronicles, Babylonian astronomical observations spanning centuries. Egypt independently invented hieroglyphics around the same time as Sumerian cuneiform. Hieroglyphs were more elaborate, combining pictograms and phonetic symbols. They were carved in stone for monumental inscriptions and written on papyrus for everyday use. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799 with the same text in hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Greek, finally allowed scholars to decode Egyptian writing after 1,400 years of mystery. China developed its own writing system independently around 1200 BC during the Shang dynasty. Oracle bones, turtle shells, and ox bones were inscribed with questions for the gods, then heated until they cracked. Diviners interpreted the cracks as answers. These early characters evolved into modern Chinese script, the only ancient writing system still in widespread use today. The Phoenicians, seafaring traders around 1050 BC, made the next breakthrough, the alphabet. Instead of thousands of symbols representing words or syllables, they created just 22 symbols representing consonant sounds. This was revolutionary. Anyone could learn to read and write in weeks instead of years. Literacy was no longer limited to professional scribes. The Greeks adopted the Phoenician alphabet around 800 BC and added vowels, creating the first true alphabet with both consonants and vowels. This became the basis for Latin, which spread across Europe with the Roman Empire. Today, over half the world's writing systems descend from that Phoenician innovation. Writing enabled complex civilizations. You can't run an empire with thousands of officials without written orders, records, and laws. You can't accumulate scientific knowledge without writing down observations and theories. Mathematics exploded once notation systems were developed. Babylonian mathematics, Egyptian geometry, later Greek algebra, and proof-based reasoning. Literature emerged. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written in cuneiform around 2100 BC, is one of humanity's oldest stories. A king's quest for immortality, his friendship with Enkidu, his confrontation with mortality. Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, transcribed around 700 BC, preserved centuries of oral tradition. The Hebrew Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Analects of Confucius, religious and philosophical texts that shaped civilizations.
But for most of human history, books were rare and precious. Each copy had to be painstakingly written by hand. Monasteries in medieval Europe preserved classical texts by copying them onto vellum. A single Bible could take a year to produce. Literacy remained limited to elites, clergy, nobles, merchants.
Then, in 1440, Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press with movable type in Germany. Books could be mass-produced. The Gutenberg Bible, printed in 1455, was just the beginning. Within 50 years, millions of books spread across Europe. The Reformation was fueled by printed pamphlets and Bibles in vernacular languages. Scientific knowledge accelerated. Isaac Newton's Principia, published in 1687, could be read by scholars across Europe. The printing press democratized knowledge. Literacy rates soared. Newspapers emerged, creating informed publics and public opinion. The Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, the rise of democracy, all depended on the spread of printed material. In the 20th century, new technologies continued the transformation. Typewriters, then computers, made writing faster and easier. The internet made publishing instantaneous and global. Social media turned everyone into potential publishers. Today, more text is created in a day than existed in all of human history before 1900. Yet writing remains fundamentally the same. Symbols representing sounds or ideas, allowing thoughts to be transmitted across space and time. The words you're reading now were written at a different time, possibly a different place, yet they trigger thoughts in your mind almost identical to those in the writers. Writing is telepathy, humanity's first and most important invention.